Welcome to Season 2 of Healing the Tigress, a podcast of conversations and stories on Asian American Pacific Islander maternal mental health. We are your hosts, Peggy, a perinatal mental health therapist,
and Jasmine, a clinical pharmacist who is perinatal mental health certified. As Taiwanese American mothers who lived through postpartum depression and anxiety, we felt like we didn't hear about other AAPI mothers struggling with their mental health in new motherhood. But we knew it couldn't just be us.
So we created this podcast because we hope that sharing these stories can start to break the stigma of mental health in our community and help heal the inner tigress in all AAPI parents.
One of the things we love to be able to do on this show is interview AAPI authors if we're lucky enough to have them. And so earlier this spring, I read an Apple Book of the Month and knew we had to get this author on our show if possible. And there were just so many themes in this book that I felt would resonate with our audience, especially the daughters of immigrants or refugees as they navigate their relationships with their own mothers while entering motherhood themselves. So today we're thrilled to have with us Susan Lieu, the author of The Manicurist's Daughter, her debut memoir that has been featured not only on Apple, but in the New York Times, NPR Books, Elle Magazine, LA Times, and the Washington Post.
Besides being an author, Susan is also a playwright, a performer, a TEDx speaker, a podcaster, and a co-founder of Sokola Chocolatier. She has a degree in social studies from Harvard College and an MBA from Yale School of Management. Susan, you're so accomplished, and we could go on and on and on about your amazing achievements. Thank you for being here with us today. Would you please tell our listeners anything else we missed, as well as tell us about your cultural background? And maybe we can let you have the honor of quickly introducing your book to our listeners, too, for some context.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for having me on the pod. I love this. I am Vietnamese American. I also identify as a mother. My kiddo is 4. I live in the Pacific Northwest in Seattle. And yeah, I am also the youngest of 4. And in my family, I was the one born in America and everyone else came over. So I think that's always important to distinguish as well. But yes, I'm the author of The Manicurist's Daughter, and I like to say that this is a journey about how can we grasp intergenerational healing as told with heartbreak and humor. It's what happens when the American dream goes terribly wrong. It's a daughter's search to know her mother so she can become a mother. And also, it's a journey about how to figure out how to love your family while still loving yourself.
Such good themes, and can't wait to dive a little bit more deeper into some of these things. So there may be a few spoilers if you haven't read the book, so we'll try to warn people. But I think the premise of the book, though, right, where I caught on was that you lost your mom at a young age because she had decided she wanted a tummy tuck, right? And then during the surgery, it went wrong. And the surgeon, I think you said she lost oxygen to her brain for like 14 minutes and he hadn't called anyone. And that's how you guys sadly lost your mom, right?
Yeah. She was 38 years old, had 2 nail salons, mother of 4. And I was 11 years old. And she was in a coma for 5 days. And then she passed. And for the next 2 decades, my family has never spoken of her or what happened ever again to this day.
So your siblings are still not open about talking about it.
So there's 3 total siblings, and 2, Wendy and Kang, they have come. I've invited them to my shows as part of the post-show discussion for 2 shows and also for my book tour. And so they can come on stage and they can talk about what they think about what I write about, but we cannot talk about, hey, are you okay? How did you grieve or not grieve? Like, tell me any memories of Ma. Like that. When it gets really vulnerable, we can't go there. Like what they think about me doing this, we can talk about that.
Right.
But privately, the conversation does not continue.
It's compartmentalized. It's like, oh, this is Susan's work. This is what Susan's doing in the world with this, but it's not, how does this impact Susan directly, or how does it impact us directly? And you're the youngest, and so you were really young when you lost your mom. Like 11 is such a formative age. I feel like I remember when I was 11, and that's just such a confusing time. I remember even reading, it's kind of when you're trying to find your independence and stuff. And I think one thing that stood out to me about reading, and I, again, no, try not to have spoilers, but the one thing that stood out to me about reading about your mother's death that kind of is in line with this, like nobody's talking about it, nobody's like trying to check on people, is that you mentioned nobody had even hugged you in the days after your mother's death. And it wasn't until like a teacher and the yard duty embraced you because you were like sobbing, and they're like, what happened? You're like, my mom died. And she's like, oh my goodness, right? Like, let's embrace this child. And in so many Asian cultures, we see this lack of showing of physical affection or even any comfort in times of grief. And then you mentioned yourself as well. As a Vietnamese daughter, you've always had to suppress your emotional and expressive self. And as we talk to you now, I feel like you're very expressive. And I love like how, as we've gotten to know you in the few minutes as we're talking to you, I see that. How do you think becoming a mother, or even just the process of when you were preparing to become a mother, has changed your relationship with your emotions?
My God. I mean, there's two parts of this. This is while I'm pregnant, I actually did not form a close relationship with my fetus. Like I had two business school classmates who had stillbirths within like a year of each other. And I was thinking that can happen like at 38 weeks, 39 weeks. And I'm sitting there going like, oh my God, I cannot form an emotional bond to this thing growing inside of me until it comes out and I know it's healthy. Because I know with grief, I just want to minimize it, right? I want to avoid it as much as possible. I want it to hurt less. So the truth of it is I didn't form an emotional bond with my fetus until I was sure it was alive. Okay, so that's like the level of what I'm dealing with emotionally, is I'm so afraid I'm going to be having postpartum depression and what if the baby dies? Okay, so then there's that. Now, once the baby is born, it's like I'm in disbelief. I'm in disbelief because my entire life I was told that, you know, if I eat too much, I'll be fat and no one will ever love me and then I'll die alone. Like, did I ever think I would actually become a mother? No. You know, and then now here I am and I'm like, oh my God, I feel so responsible, not only for this child, but like if I want to undo everything that has been done to me, I got to be so careful with how I'm being triggered, how I deal with emotions, how I talk about emotions. And it's like, whoa, dude, like this kid's like 1 week old, you know, but you're pushed into the forefront of having to grapple with all these things.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And trying to figure out like, I'm the one in charge now. Like I can't really blame anybody else. Yes, I need to work through my stuff. And yes, I have inherited that. But really it's up to me now to create the world that I always wanted, or the world that I wish my inner child could have had. And so now that my kiddo is 4, you know, if he's having a breakdown around emotions, or especially if I'm really trying to just like really name it, say, I feel feeling word, right? Because growing up, it was, I feel like you're dumb, right? Like there was no vulnerability or no I statements in my family. It was let's survive, right? And so for me, I'm excited that I can teach my son I feel feeling words. Sometimes I take myself out on a timeout when I know I'm losing it. And I'll be like, I need to go to my room. And he's like, no. And I was like, no, no, I'm not going to be my best self right now. Right. But I can see myself entering into that pain cycle with either my husband or with my kid or with myself. And I'm like, whoa, I got to steer clear of this. Yes, we're going to process it. Yes, we're going to repair that rupture. But right now I'm aware enough. I've done enough work to know I got to take care of this right now. Right. And I'm not perfect about it. No way. But I think that's it with teaching anyone about emotions, is that it is messy, but that if we don't talk about it, that's where the harm is done.
Yeah. And really knowing yourself too.
Yeah. It reminds me of we had another episode with a dad who was like, oh, I really need to figure out my mental health now that I'm a dad, because like you said, suddenly this thing is out of you, this life. And you see your past, your future, your everything, like you just said. You're like, oh, now I am responsible for how this living, breathing being is going to experience feelings. And am I going to repeat old patterns, or am I going to let this be a chance to heal my inner child by giving this child the skills that I didn't have? It's a lot to carry. I feel like it's a lot to be like, oh, I am now responsible for this.
Right. And it's also what I hated about my childhood is that I don't think the adults were adults, and I don't think I got to be the kid. Right. And I am deeply indebted to my elders. I stand on their shoulders. I'm so grateful for their sacrifice. That can exist. And yet I can also feel resentful that no one checked in on me. And that when I did have emotions and I did ask about my mom, they made me feel like it was my fault. And they made me feel like a black sheep about it. They said, you're just too like crybaby, you know? And it's like, I just lost my mother. Doesn't matter if I just lost her 3 days ago or 3 years ago. Like, that is not okay. That is not okay. And so there are times when this just happened the other weekend. My kid comes up to us. My husband and I are in a heightened discussion about something. And my kid tries to de-escalate. And he was like, hey, what do you want to do this weekend? You know, what's the one thing you want to do? Because that's how we try to enjoy the weekends more, is everyone gets to do their one thing that they want to do together. And I said, oh, Art, that is so sweet. Like, that is such a good idea, and we should talk about that. And I want you to know that it's not your job to fix this. Okay? Me and Appa are going to figure it out, but I want you to know you're not responsible, and it's not your fault, and you don't have to fix it.
Yeah.
Because I continue to walk around feeling like it's always my fault, and I'm always in trouble, and I hate it. I hate it. You know, it's like this dark cloud following me all the time. Doesn't matter if it's sunny outside. And I just hope that my kid can have a childhood where they don't always feel like they're in trouble or it's their fault, right? And then I don't know with how you grew up, but I have that burden all the time where it's hard for me to relax. Right? Because I think I'm in trouble all the time. And I really want my kid to have this childhood where he doesn't feel that way all the time. And yes, he will get in trouble. But I don't want him to think that it's his job to fix everything.
Yeah.
Right. I think there's that common theme of the getting in trouble. I think in Asian cultures, again, it's like, it made me think of when I would like stub my toe or hit my head, instead of being comforted, it'd be like, I told you not to go in there. Or like, see, this is what happens when you don't listen to me. And it's like, I'm in pain right now and I could just use someone to hug me, whether or not it was my fault. And sometimes it's not, like me bending over to grab something and hitting my head. But it's like, it's almost as if the moment any kind of strong feeling comes out, the reaction from the generation of our immigrant parents or refugee parents, it's like, shut that off. I don't want to be around.
Suppress
that. Like,
everything,
turn that
right?
off. Suppress.
Yeah, you're hurting the collective. Stop making it about you.
Right. Speaking of kind of the feeling of feeling like things were your fault, when you said like they would make you feel like your fault, which is like completely, you were not in the surgery room, you were not but one thing, again, not trying to ruin the book for others, but when I was reading it, I was like in tears too, of like your last words to your mom. And as a child, the guilt you must have like held on to and felt before you went to surgery. I wonder how that plays into this, like feeling like it was your fault, things are your fault. And do you think it was also part of why you were on such a big journey to uncover everything about your mother's past, as a part of also healing or forgiving yourself in that moment?
Totally. So what Peggy's referring to is that my last morning with my mother, she and I both bump into the kitchen at 6:30 a.m. She's getting ready to go to her plastic surgery, and I'm getting ready to go to this like volleyball tryout practice thing so that I could actually try out for volleyball, which she said I couldn't do. We couldn't afford it. Don't do it. And I'm sneaking around, and yet she's sneaking around too. Like we don't ever meet each other in the kitchen at this time. And so she's pretty firm that I can't go try out for volleyball. And I am so angry with her. I'm so angry with her. I had just gotten my period. She totally dismissed it. She's never around. She's working all the time. The only people who seem important in her life are her customers. And so I'm like, well, fine then. And I yell at her and I'm like, I hate you. And I slam the garage door and the frame shutters. They pull the garage out of the garage. I saunter off to school and I'm like, I'll show you. I'm going to make the team. And then after school, my brother's in the driveway and he's like, go pack your bags. We have to drive an hour. Mom's in a coma in San Francisco. Oof. And I'm sitting there going like, wait, what? Like I had no idea she was going for surgery. Growing up in the nail salon, what happens in soap operas is someone goes in a coma, they have a 1 in a million chance to survive, and they always survive and they always wake up even 6 years later or whatever. And my mom is such a pillar in the family that I don't ever see, I don't actually think she's going to die. No way. And we proceed to go to the city and everything pans out as it does. And here's the thing. I had never told that story to my siblings. And they only discover that when they see me perform it on stage in my one-woman show, 140 Pounds, How Beauty Killed My Mother. That memory I have held, and it had nowhere to go. The trauma could not move. No one cared to hear that story anyways. I wasn't allowed to talk about it. And boy, did I feel ashamed. Because when my mom is in a coma, my aunt is like, beg her to come back. And I'm pleading. I'm telling her I will never play volleyball ever again. Like, she always said that she was going to come to college with me. Like, I'm so sorry. I felt like, oh my God, I am such a disobedient daughter. I told her I hated her. Of course she's not going to come back because I'm such a terrible daughter. So then I held this for decades. And it had nowhere to go, right? Because the very premise of all my work is because my family could not talk about it, I had to search for answers. And so here's the thing. We're only as sick as our secrets. So what would it be for me if my family wasn't going to hear me, at least I could admit it out in public? And maybe then I wouldn't be living in the past like my family thought I was. They would always be like, you're living in the past. Like, why are you asking questions about the past? And I was like, if I don't resolve the past, I cannot live in the present. There is no future for me because everything is always being, I say in the book, like everything goes through the sieve of my mother's death, right? Like everything in life, like the people I choose to be my partner, what I think I should do for a career. Everything is basically always going back to the source of the trauma. And so for me to be able to share that on stage and to share it in my book was my own form of liberation. Because now you know what I'm the most shameful about. You can choose to be in relationship with me or not. But the thing is there's no blackmailing, right? There's nothing that I can hide. So now you see me for who I am. So that for me was liberation.
That's huge. And that reminds me a lot of one of our other past guests, Michelle Yang, who was talking about coming out with her bipolar disorder and telling other people about it too, because she felt like she was just living in hiding all her life and no one could really see her for who she really was. And I feel like this is kind of what you're saying too, is that, your family didn't understand why you were so stuck, because there was a lot of trauma and they didn't even know like what that source was until you could release it. And we can't, like you said, we can't move forward sometimes until we release that. So I mean, it probably took such courage to get on stage in front of strangers and admit that. But at the same time, like you're saying, right, that freedom of feeling like, well, take it or leave it. This is who I am. Right. And you're my true friends and the real people who are going to stick by me. Doesn't matter like what I've done or what's been in the past. Now they know, and I will know who's going to choose me and stick by me. Right. So that's so powerful. And I love that message. I feel like a lot of people probably could relate to that.
Yeah. And you release the power that that memory has on you when you get to speak it. And the more you speak it, it becomes less and less of something that you carry with you. And the more that you share it, the more it's like, yeah, that wasn't my responsibility. Just like you said, my son doesn't have to be responsible for things. You were in no way responsible. And you release that power and you reclaim that power. Like Jasmine said, like you are now the holder of the power.
Yeah. I mean, if we look at the post-traumatic growth curve with grief, you have to deny it, accept it, be angry about it, be sad about it, feel remorse. And then when we go through, right? Like in my book, I say it 3 times: when we feel, we heal. And I just think if we can possibly go through all the mess, all the discomfort, we can build anew, right? We can transform pain into power, but we must go through, which as humans, we are conditioned to avoid, right? It's a Darwinistic survival method. Like, let me not feel pain. The insight here is we'll go all the way, and then that pain will transform.
Yeah. I think the one thing too, I realize that as the young Asian daughters of immigrants get older, we suddenly have to relearn our own intuition because we didn't get to trust our intuition growing up. We just had to listen to other people's guidance for us. And so like, I feel like as an adult, it's like, do I want to do this because other people are asking me to do it? Or do I want to do this because this is what I need? And you have to like learn that as an adult.
Yes. And I know you wanted to talk about eating and body and force feeding, because I think this is directly related to it.
Yes. The intuitive, oh my gosh, perfect transition. Can you tell Susan's got a podcast? My next question. This is part of the book where, okay, so I was like taking notes when I was reading the book because I was like, we're going to
Wait, you're taking notes like in the margins?
Not on your book.
Like...
I don't like writing in my note app.
I can't write.
I can't write in a book.
What? Sacred.
I can write in textbooks, not on your book.
Yeah.
What? No, that's how like I feel like that's how I remember stuff.
I know.
No?
I know. I didn't want to desecrate the beauty of the book. I mean, it's right. Oh my God. Here, hold on. Here's your beautiful. Our listeners can't see. I'm holding up the book. I have this beautiful like bookmark that matches the cover. Anyway, so the next question. I wrote this down because this is such a universal Asian experience for like Asian immigrant parents, pushing you to finish all your food to the point of gagging, or I wrote gorging, because I read that part of the book and I swear I had flashbacks of being told that the number of grains of rice left in my bowl would be the number of pimples my future husband would have, which I'm sure my husband appreciates.
Oh my God, that's devastating.
Oh, I heard that too.
Yeah.
Of pimples?
Yeah. Well, it's
yes.
like
and it's so fun.
This is your husband's face. So make sure you finish all your food.
Oh my God.
Notice how sexist that superstition is too. It's like, if I don't eat all my rice, I'm going to marry an ugly husband. Anyway. So I recall being genuinely, and it's funny because I don't recall this until I've had a child, right? So like when I'm trying to get him to finish eating and he's like, I'm full. I suddenly am like, he might actually be full. And then I suddenly remember trying to shovel rice in my mouth and crying and being like, I am gagging because my body is literally full. But I'd be like, no, eat, you need to eat. And it's just so funny because I was never taught intuitive eating. I did not learn when I was full because I was told not to trust my body when I was literally like, oh, and then sorry listeners for that sound, but like gagging up my rice because I could not finish it. And that part of your story, I was like, oh my gosh, this is me. Susan is me. I am Susan. How do you think this toxic behavior of force feeding plays into these issues of body image, as well as distorted eating habits? And sorry for a 2-part question. How have you felt like these early experiences with food shaped your own mothering experience with feeding?
Oh my God. Yes. All of it. Well, it went back to your original point about when we're always trying to please our elders, we don't even know how we feel about something or what we think or what we want. And that translates totally to the mind-body connection and knowing when we're full and that's okay. Like, did you guys ever grow up not drinking water at dinner?
I can't remember what I drank at dinner.
I don't remember drinking water as a child, though, to be honest.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we never drank water.
We never drank water because, right, like water in the home village would have been tainted so that they make tea. and you drink tea, right?
That's right.
So anyway, so growing up, it was just eating, and like now I learned that you can drink water while you eat, and it actually helps you like become
Digest.
more full and digest. So I'm sitting here being force fed, right? And then it's like instead of the pimple on the future husband, it was number of worms that you have to eat in hell.
Oh God.
Which was
Not
ridiculous because we're Buddhists and there's no hell in Buddhism. Didn't make sense. But right, it's terrifying, and there's this culture of fear around it, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna listen to my elders, like they know best. And then the flip side, like a few months after my mom passed, they said, don't eat that second bowl of rice, like when I like really, really loved a dish, because you're gonna get too fat and no one's gonna love you. Mm-hmm. Right? And then it's like, man, they're able to pull these levers where it's like, I can't have what I want, whether that's more or less. And for me to actually understand intuitive eating, I didn't understand and learn this practice until about the first time I started going to a silent meditation retreat. So that was actually about 20 years ago, which is this like, eating was the most exciting part of the silent meditation retreat. That was when you actually had variety. Mm-hmm. And then that's when it was so quiet and I had no social obligation to please anyone sitting across from me or distract me, that I could actually, and I was so, when you're silent all the time, like everything is so sensitive.
Heightened even?
Yeah, heightened. Mm-hmm. And this was a 10-day silent meditation retreat. This is the first one I ever went to. My sophomore year in college. It's in the book. And all of a sudden I could feel getting full, and that I got full really quickly. And it was devastating because then there was like more food, and this was the entertainment of the retreat. And by the time I get to day 3 of every silent meditation retreat I go on, I make a promise to myself that when I feel full and I burp one time, I'm going to throw away the rest of this food. And it is the craziest mind experiment for me to throw away food. Because one, I'm honoring my body. Hey, I'm full. But then the second thing is like, oh my God, my grandma is going to roll around in her grave and tell me all the wars and tell me all the, of like how I'm sinning. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But because no elder is looking at me, because actually in silent meditation retreats, you don't actually make eye contact because that's a form of like social approval. Mm-hmm. I mean, some people do. I take it to this level because I really want to be quiet.
Don't look at me.
Maybe I'm the only person not making eye contact with anybody else.
You wouldn't know because you're not making eye contact with
anybody.
I know,
right? And then I make this practice of throwing away the food, right? Because that was like the worst thing you could have done is waste food.
Yeah.
But then I do it, and over time when I'm in line, I let people go ahead of me in line, and I like actually scoop way less. And then I like only eat what I want, and it's so nourishing. And then eventually I'm not throwing away anything because I know how much, but usually I'm scooping a lot because of the scarcity complex, right? And then I can get to this place where I'm like really enjoying it. I chew my food 20 times per bite. I drop the utensil when I'm chewing. Like I am like an angelic eater at these meditation retreats.
Mindful eating.
Yeah, because no one is rushing me or I'm not going to the next thing. And afterwards I'm like, I can really listen to my body and make choices for my body. And I know this sounds so simple, but I think in our chaotic world today, it is so hard to listen, to trust, and to act from that without worrying about everyone else and optimizing everyone else's experience and hoping blah, 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 and going on and on and on. And so for me, it's like, I'm finally like actively practicing it, but boy, does my 4-year-old sometimes go, Ma, it's not a race, right? Because like I'll be eating and then I'm just as a mom, like I'm thinking about the next thing, like the next thing all the time. The mental load is so big, and I'm just trying to like have sustenance because I'm going to still have to clean the kitchen, to put on the bath, do all this stuff, right? Don't forget the show and tell item. Like my husband has never remembered the show and tell item ever, right? Like there's so much as a lead parent that we have to do. And then my kid is also helping me to be awake. But I gotta tell you, the food, the force feeding, like, I want my kid not to have body image issues. I want to have to not pay for his therapy in the future. You know, I want all these things to happen. And yet, so he'll eat his cereal and then he'll be like, Ma, I want more. And I'm like, okay, like small, medium, large. And then you're like, a lot or a little? Okay, a lot. And then I'll give him the food, Honey Nut Cheerios. He'll eat one bite. All done. And I lose it inside, like my glands are like inflamed. Clearly I'm a doctor. and then I'm like, are you I try to be like really chill about it, but I'm not chill. And I'm like,
you're like left eye twitches.
Are you sure? You know? Which is like, I know I don't want to become my elders in that way where I'm making him doubt himself, but I'm like, you just told me you wanted more. And it's like, he's like, yeah, I'm all done. And like, just like hops off and goes to do the next thing. And then I'm sitting there and I have to coach myself and say, Susan, you bought these Honey Nut Cheerios from Costco. That is 13 cents of cereal. It's 13 cents. It's 13 cents. It's 13 cents. Net present value, it's 12 cents. Come on, Susan. It's okay. You know, like, and then I have to throw it away, right? Because I mean, homeboy can like drink real milk and I drink oat milk, right? But the point is like I'm watching myself like almost about to get riled up, and then I'm like, okay, we can complete this moment, Susan. And I have to tell myself it costs 13 cents.
I mean, whatever you can do to get yourself through that, right? But I totally can resonate because my daughter does the same thing where she's like, I want more. And I'm like, okay. And then like, how much more? Same thing. Like, you know, you give them the amount they want and then they're like, yeah, I'm done. I just took one bite. Or like they like nibbled on it and they're like, I'm done. And I'm like, really? That was it? What a waste. And I feel the same thing where it's like, oh, please don't be my dad. Please don't sound like, you know, where the voice is coming through my head right now.
Yeah. I've been struggling with teaching my kid Vietnamese because my Vietnamese is okay. But so many times I have to stop myself from screaming at him in Vietnamese and yelling at him in Vietnamese because I'm like, that's the only Vietnamese he's going to know. That's going to be a great relationship, right? Yeah. But like, it's like I can still hear my parents yelling at me and me wanting to yell the same thing. It's like this crazy reverberating echo as a parent that I need to just recognize, allow, and then like run out of the room, you know, like I'm like, oh my God, it's happening. So what I'm trying to say is it's still a struggle. Like it really hurts my feelings when my kid doesn't want to eat anything besides chicken nuggets, plain pasta with cheese, and like a lot of tomatoes. Like he picks all the tomatoes in our garden and doesn't ever share them with me, you know, like, but he doesn't eat Vietnamese food, you know, like, or we go to Asian restaurants and he just eats a bowl, like a third of a bowl of rice. And there's this sadness in me where I do want to be like, if you don't eat that food, then I'm going to spank you or whatever. Like my elders did. Like I vividly shown so many chapters where I was just like, it became so threatening, so dismissive. They made me eat alone. I had to throw up my food because I ate so much that I couldn't even keep it inside. Like it was so one part of the extreme. And yet there's so much of fear in the loss of heritage where like if they don't have these flavors earlier on, will they ever crave them? Like how will they remember me when I'm dead? I know it's morbid, but like there's a part of me that has that attachment around food. And I have to recognize my attachment, right? I have to own that. But also there's that sense of sadness and loss, you know, that grief. And maybe things will change when he's 5, 6, 7, 8. But right now I do feel this push and pull around frustration around eating, right? Yeah. But I am continuously, as a mother for myself and my postpartum body, like I'm still trying to unpack that too, right? Like, am I nourishing myself? Am I eating out of emotional distraught? And what am I teaching my kid? And I'm like, Susan, just take the Lactaid and eat the mac and cheese. All right. Just like chill out. Like, don't be so poetic about this. But like every moment is this metaphor. And the question is, how am I going to deal with it, especially in front of my kid, which is helpful with growth.
Yeah. So along the same topics of talking about, you know, body image too, right? I mean, your whole book is sort of based kind of about that because of your mom's experience with her tummy tuck. And you've talked about ideas of like negative body image and never feeling outwardly perfect enough that led your mom to wanting plastic surgery. And that tragically cost her life. And then I think you've mentioned that you yourself struggled with others' criticisms of your body. You know, you were not the perfect size 0 or 2. I feel like many Asian women are sort of unfairly expected to be like that.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So this battle though with loving your body, right? It's only gotten more complicated after becoming a mom. And in your TEDx talk you earlier this year, I think you named it, making peace with your belly fat. It was really, I listened to it. It was great. Can you talk about the continued work you do today to try to love and honor your body that has been constantly judged by your family all your life, and especially after becoming a mom yourself?
Yeah, great question. So in the How to Make Peace with Your Belly Fat TEDx talk, I talk about how my ancestors slapped me around in a sweat lodge. Like it was my intention to make peace with my belly fat. And I thought I was going to have some like beautiful moment with my grandmother and mother, and it'll be so amazing. And really they were just upset with me. They were just like, "Do you understand that when you don't like your body, really you're saying you don't like us? You don't like where you come from. This body was created because of how we worked in the rice fields.
Mm-hmm.
This body birthed you. It birthed your mother. It birthed her mother. This is where you come from." Right? Like you can't expect to be Kim Kardashian, Barbie blonde girl. Like it's just your DNA is not that. And if my mother, if my last gift to you is my DNA, my body, what does that say about you? And I felt like when I heard that in the sweat lodge, it really transformed how I felt about my body.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it over the years has been like, I'm going to do this master cleanse, and I'm going to do this thing, and I'm going to work out all the time, and I'm going to do high intensity workouts. And it's as if it's like I'm responsible for me. And yes, like there is a lot of accountability around working out, but there's also this acceptance around just body shape. Like I am a pear-shaped person. Actually, my weight was exactly the same weight when my mother passed away. Like we have the same weight and almost the same height. Like I am a cookie cutter of my mother.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it's less about like, oh, I'm so lazy, I can't try hard enough, to, wow, I'm a carbon copy of my mother.
Mm-hmm.
I do squeeze my belly fat and wish I could start all over and like cut it off, right? Like I've never worn a bikini. And when I wear crop tops, I feel like an overweight troll, like I don't feel beautiful in that way. But when I was able to say, oh my God, this is my gift from my ancestors, and also like, this is a vessel that I have that lets me do whatever I want on this planet. Mm-hmm. Right? It gives me great energy. And guess what? Like, until I'm a little bit older, I don't need anyone to wipe my butt when I go poop. Like, can I recognize all the wonderful things that my body does do and that was able to birth my son, but also that I continue and get to do on this planet? So I gotta tell you, like, feeling beautiful, like I've always asked my husband, like, just tell me I'm beautiful. He's like, it feels forced. And I'm like, why can't you do that for me? Right? Which is like, it's about like this own journey around like, how do I really appreciate and love my body? I will say I just recently started this clothing rental service because like I don't buy beautiful clothes for me because I always think I can lose 15 more pounds, And so I started this rental service because I want to just have clothes that look good for me right now, whether I do lose these pounds that I haven't been able to lose for 20 years or not, and it's like, I'm trying to find other ways to make me feel beautiful given the anxieties that I have around money and beauty. And I think like after having a kid, he hears it,
Mm-hmm.
he hears my mutterings. He hears all that. And in the book, there's this chapter called Squeeze Back, where because my son is listening and because my family has body shamed me all my life and they think it's very normal, when he was listening, I realized I was at a fork in the road and this is my moment to change. And I took that leap. But I will only say I had that courage because I was a mother.
It gives you a different kind of strength, I feel, when you're a mom, because you have more to prove, more to lose, you know? So, and you don't want your son learning these toxic body image habits, right? So
yeah, I know people are always like, so how's motherhood? And I'm like, it's the most surprising form of personal growth.
Oh,
that
yeah.
I didn't see it. I had an inkling about it, but it is not a 4-day workshop. It is a 24-hour lifestyle.
I feel like people who say they're the same person before and after motherhood, I'm like, what are you like? They're lying. I just there's no possible way. I don't understand. I like if you're out there listening and you're like, I don't know what these ladies are talking about on the same I don't understand. I have never been able to wrap my mind around how something like that cannot change you. Like,
yeah, it's a forced
transformation.
You know, it's not like, oh my God, you're the most beautiful thing in the world. I feel love and light and I'm a better person. It's like having a kid like rams you into change. You know what I mean? You are forced to grapple with your stuff.
Yeah. It seems like you had that foresight of what that would do, because you even said, like, if you didn't think you could be a good mom if you had unfinished dreams, because like you knew, like, if once I become a mom, I'm not going to be able to do all these things. So you threw yourself into your performing arts career before you could even consider becoming pregnant. And this quote, we love this quote because it's a nod to the Tiger Mom. You wrote, I knew I would be the worst Tiger Mom, projecting onto my kid everything I wanted for myself. And we're all here to heal that Tiger Mom. And I think this is something many of us also struggle with because of our own immigrant parents projecting their dreams onto us. Do you feel like you had the desire to chase your dreams first because you were tiger parented? And where did this awareness come from about, like, okay, I'm not going to be a good tiger mom, and maybe at some point I don't want to be a tiger mom?
Yeah. Well, I thought I'm an Aries, guys. I'm like really competitive. Okay, like there's a fire in me. But I start off the book in chapter 1 talking about that I was disappointed with the adult I became. You know, and I felt like I was a coward in my own life. Like all my life, I felt groomed to be somebody. Did all this leadership stuff, student body president, like went to Harvard, went to Yale. Like I felt like everyone was like, you're going to be great in life. And then I was like, I was working a job in the private sector, management consultant. And it was just like, I felt like I wasn't using all of my brain. I felt like I wasn't being seen or valued. I felt like when I spoke up and they asked for my opinion, they didn't actually want to hear it. Like I was just sitting there going like, what? How did I get here? Like I thought I was supposed, like, I feel so ashamed. And I had started stand-up comedy years prior and things were going great until I got heckled. And then I just quit because I was just like, such a dumb idea. Anyways, who was I thinking to think that I was that good at anything? Right. But I saw that, and I saw that as shadow work, and I saw that as like, whoa, dude, like I need to deal with my coward stuff, my fear stuff, my shadow work, because if I don't, that is going to the kid. Right? We're not poor anymore. We're middle class. And then like I'm going to sign him up for drama class or drama camp or whatever. And then I'll be kind of like bitter. Like, did you not try hard enough? Like, why didn't you get the lead in the play? You know, when really it's me. I want to be a performer, right? And so I could see it. I could totally see it because I was always taught to do my best and be resourceful. So like now if I give you all the resources, like why aren't you the best? Right? I saw that. So I said, hey, I told my husband, I said, we went to business school. I said, let's time box it for 2 years. I'm going to get the wiggles out with performance. You do your like outdoor stuff. Like, I don't know why you want to do a Sufferfest, but whatever. and let's come back to this because this is unresolved stuff. And I know that I just know myself. I know better, you know, and I can't say with a straight face, hey, go do what you want in life if I didn't myself.
Yeah.
I knew it. And I knew I was capable of doing it, but I was also very scared. So that led to the one woman show, which led to the book, and it was like, who knew that me dealing with my own cowardice and also searching for the truth of my mother would lead me to the path of a different career where I don't feel like I'm just pressing buttons all the time, where I do feel like I'm walking my path, where every day I get beautiful fan mail about the healing that my work is doing for them. Like, oh my God, I am living the dream, right? And I would have never made that pivot unless motherhood forced me into it.
Gosh, and as you're talking about this, right, it's like you're also healing yourself, chasing the things you wanted to do. And so much of your story, I think, is like you looking back at past you and saying, I don't want to go through life with any regrets. And I think this was from your TEDx talk, but you said something that was like, inner child Susan always wished to belong or to be seen in her family as who she really was. Who would you tell your family that you really are? Or like, how would you describe who you really are now? And, has that really changed the way also how you parent your own child today?
Okay, y'all are gonna see how woo-woo and Western I am. But if I could truly answer that, to my family, I'd be like, I am love and light, and I'm here to inspire and entertain, and my energy is beautiful and it's infectious, and I'm allowed to share it with the world, and it seeds more love and light.
Oh.
And there was this precise moment when I was in high school. I was leading like this volunteer group for other high schoolers, and I had invited them to come to one of our national days of service. I invited my brother and my sister, I think, and they were standing there in the hallway. And I have to do this thing called a safety talk where I'm like, don't touch needles, but I make it really entertaining and fun. And all of a sudden I realized they were there and I shrunk. I shrunk, because being a Vietnamese girl, that's attention seeking. That is too loud. It's too much. It's too all these things, and it was like, I was not the mold. I was not fitting the Vietnamese mold. I was too American. And here I was attracting so much attention. And so for a long time, I tried to stuff it in things like, well, I'm the student body president, so I'm going to run a rally because I'm trying to get an A. Somehow if I somehow justified it, then I was allowed to be that Susan in very confined moments instead of being that Susan all the time, which I get to be on stage, which I get to do in interviews and be on TV. Like, that's really me, but it's so not Vietnamese. And it's so like, well, why do you want attention? Instead of like, are you even listening to the content of what I'm talking about? Like, I'm talking about healing, guys, And I feel like for a long time I had to shrink that to make other people feel comfortable. And I got to a point where it's like it's more painful to not bloom, like you just gotta be who you are, because guess what? When I was trying to adhere to the default world of what was expected of me and my family tribe, it didn't feel that good anyways. So should I continue to do that and be compliant with that and not feel that good? Or do I break away and form my own trail and find different tribes members? It's not disowning my family, but it's also saying, when I'm with these other people or when I can behave a certain way, I feel alive. I feel like it's life-giving. I feel authentically me.
And that's so important to show to your child too, I think, right? That you can be who you are. If we're going to like tell our kids we want them to like be their true selves and stuff, then we have to sort of not be hypocrites, right?
Right. Yeah, but also it's like, can't you feel the difference? Like, can't you just feel that energy of like when something is life-taking versus life-giving, when you have to adhere to these rules that don't serve you? Why? And so eventually I stepped into that, and I pivoted to becoming an artist 6 years ago. And there are down days, but boy, are there up days.
Mm-hmm. I think there's something about, and we had another episode about like just our first gay father on the podcast about like, it's kind of like when you're not living your authentic self, and when you, as Susan, was not living your bright, shining, authentic self, it's almost like you're in the closet. And we already know what that does to people's mental health. And I think the same way, whenever we are putting on a mask or being who other people want us to be, it drains us, and it doesn't put our mental health first. It continues to stuff us down. And I think whenever I felt like I haven't been my authentic self, it does make you feel depressed. It does make you feel like I don't have the energy to be this person because I'm not living my authentic self.
Something you said about like being a Vietnamese girl, and like this is so not like a Vietnamese girl thing.
It's not demure. It's not mindful.
Right? And so I'm going to give a little spoil alert for listeners. If you haven't read the book and you kind of want to skip past this, I'm going to drop a little something. But there is a chapter in your book where you talked about visiting your dad in Texas with your son for the first time. And you guys visit Uncle Number 9, who's a monk with paranormal powers, and he has like fortune telling predictions and, abilities. And he mentioned to you, he predicted that you were going to have a daughter next. So how did you react to that possibility? And I remember in your book, you were like, you mean I'm going to adopt one or something, right? And do you think that it would be more challenging raising a daughter, knowing, your history with your mom, you and your mom having body image issues?
Yeah. Everyone, I'm one and done. Okay. I am one and done. And I think that, but there's so much shame around that too. And so much, I feel a lot of guilt and stress around that, even though I'm like, I want myself to age faster so I can be like, it's really over. Like the window of opportunity has shut, even though it's still there. Right. So anyways, Uncle Number 9 was like, and you'll have a daughter too. And I think in Vietnamese culture, it's like, oh, it's even, it's balanced, a boy and a girl, and I'm just like, I was mortified. I was like, no, like, I was like, I'm on double birth control right now. I should go on triple, like, I was like, the window is closed for business, like, I was just like, sounds awful. This sounds awful, but I have to admit it, is that, I feel like my career is my second child. I feel like for the sake of my mental health, I don't want to have a second child. I want to be the best I can be for one child, for the child I have that I chose to have, and that's it. Because I see my my friends with 2 or 3 kids, and they're like, 1 and 1 does not equal 2. It equals 3. It equals 4. And I see them. I see them melting. I see them. I see the struggle, and I have my own struggles with one. And so for me, I was devastated to hear that he said I would have a second kid. I was like, yeah, right. Like, you say that to all women because that's what they want to hear. I was like, that's cool. It's cool with me. You don't have to. But I definitely continued the double birth control for a little bit.
Has the predictions come in true in the past? Is he what's his score?
I mean, that's why I was like, because of what Susan had written and all this stuff, like he's pretty accurate. So that's why I was like,
he is, but he's like 80%. So I hope I'm that 20%. But you never say never, right? I think of course it would be. Look, I gotta say, I have a son, a boy, and trying to raise him as a feminist boy, one who respects women, one that is in touch with his feelings, right? Like, that in itself is its own thing that I'm trying to unpack and grapple with. And then to have a girl with social media the way it is, I would be terrified. I mean, I'm kind of terrified for my kid anyways, my son, but it's more like, especially for girls, God, the stories I read about the bullying that happens or the suicides, just with teenagers and young children, it's so scary to me. I know for me, I've struggled a lot with my body, and back then we only had MySpace,
And Zanga.
Yeah, everyone was friends with Tom, but like I can't imagine being able to have access to all the other bodies that are dominant bodies, that are
AI bodies now.
AI bodies, big breasted bodies, all these, like what is real, right? But also what is to be constantly othered at that age. I can't imagine it. And I know folks are talking about having legislation around social media or cell phone use in schools, and I'm excited about that.
I'm for it.
I don't think we have control as humans, like that we just want these dopamine hits, right? So I would be terrified to have a girl. And I remember in 140 pounds, one of the last lines is I'm trying to ask my mom these questions before she leaves, because she had spirit channeled through my father. And I said, if I have a girl, how do I make her love her body?
Oh.
Right? I think that is an open question, because even me as a woman now, as a woman who's supposed to be responsible and accountable and designing my dream life, how do I do it? Right? It's something that I continue to work on, because there is no easy answer. And plastic surgery is also not an easy answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the most touching parts of your memoir is that in learning about your mother and finding yourself, you also found a way to heal your relationship with your living dad. We've talked a lot about your mom. We actually didn't talk a lot about your dad. And so much of our immigrant or refugee parents don't know how to show love and affection in ways that we might want to see. What can you share with our listeners about how you've learned to strengthen your relationship with your father now that you are a mother too?
Love this question. It's a complicated question, and it's a necessary question, because I think healing the inner child is never done unless we've grappled with both of our parents, because they make us who we are. I think for the longest time, I've been asking my father questions about my mother. Tell me about her. Just tell me about her. Do you remember that day? Anything else to know? And he has shut me down for decades. For a long time, I thought, why is he withholding information from me? Why is he being mean to me? Like, this is too perfect for a novel. The very thing that the character can't have that they want, right? I hated that. I hated that so much. And after I became a mother, I realized I could keep pointing my finger at him, blaming him, saying he's the source of my pain. Or I could move that finger and point it back at me and ask myself, what does inner child Susan need now to feel safe? What does Susan now need to feel complete? And part of that was going on this artist's journey to discover the truth and to write it down and to perform it and to create a community around me that also talks about trauma and healing. The other part was to recognize that I cannot freeze him in time any longer. I can set my father free. I am not in high school anymore. He is not at the nail salon anymore. It's been almost 3 decades. If I am allowed to evolve, he also must be allowed to evolve. And so I thawed out my father. I allowed him to also be an adult and have ownership in his own life, because I was finally giving myself that grace, right? And so part of that is being able to let people go. And in doing that, I was able to become closer to him, right? Like, I wasn't holding it over his head anymore that you need to tell me this, then I'll be complete, then I will heal, right? I went to go take care of my own stuff. And I was like releasing my grasp, releasing that expectation, because I was creating a culture of conditional love with him. And so after my kid was born, I was able to say, hey, what's going to be the most compassionate thing for me right now? And when I had traveled to Texas right after COVID and right after the vaccine came out, I was able to go see him. I had to keep telling myself, like, I don't know how many more times I'm going to see him in my life.
Yeah.
Let's make this a pleasant experience. I had to tell myself, whatever he does is a way to protect him. And this is what his best looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And to recognize he might not have the capacity and tools to deal with his trauma in this lifetime, but I do. And that also means I'm going to give him grace and space and compassion.
Yeah. I think also what I remember reading is that once you had sort of stepped back and let go even a little bit, like you even started to notice little details of things that like you didn't even remember, like that wasn't actually part of your memory because it had been so seared that like he was just being so closed off. But when he brought up like, oh, do you remember like this letter you wrote us, or like, and you were like, wait, hold on. Like, I don't remember this memory like this. Like, oh, wow, you guys were actually like trying to support me. When I think, was it your stepmother was sending you money for certain things you needed or wanted to do, right? So I can feel that deeply because I feel like as when we became parents, like we also entered new relationships with our parents too.
Mm-hmm.
And for myself, I feel the same way where I'm trying to heal some of this. There were rifts after I went through postpartum depression that I'm still trying to heal between my parents. And I feel the same way, whereas like I feel like maybe I was just being a little too hard on them sometimes. If I took a step back and looked and gave them more grace, maybe I could see something that I wasn't able to see before. So it was beautiful the way you wrote about like that healing with your dad. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think sometimes like as a wounded animal, we just remember the wound, and like we feel that pain and we don't want to have that pain again. So we're going to do everything we can to avoid it, instead of like, how can I see the forest from the trees right now? Or also, I do stand on their shoulders of sacrifice, and I have the awareness and the access and the privilege to have tools and self-care, and they might not. So
Mm-hmm.
so what do I do now, right?
Yeah.
And how do I love them and love myself?
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. And thinking about how your dad also had to grieve the loss of your mom in a very different way than we would expect, but somewhat like everyone else was also grieving. And they don't have the tools that we have. And it also makes us realize just how lucky we are to be born in this time and age and under these stars and stuff, to say like, wow, I have all these resources available to me. Or for someone to pick up your book and be like, this is the healing I needed, and like we are just much more privileged to be able to even have something like this podcast, have this as a resource, or have you as a guest, like just all these things that our parents never would have had.
Yeah. Well, to end our episodes for this season, we've been asking all of our guests to maybe think back to a moment in the past. And maybe you can talk to inner Susan, inner child Susan, or whoever at some point in the past for a form of healing. What would you say to yourself now that you're on this side and you can look back?
It's not your fault. It's not your fault. Yeah. I mean, I used to hate it when people are like, it's gonna be okay. Like, I'm like, oh, don't give me that, right? Like, I don't want that. Like, don't dismiss what I'm feeling right now. But just to tell her that, it's just not her fault.
Yeah.
And I guess I would have also said about the adults, because like they were like patting me on the head and just like at the funeral and just telling me to be good at school, like it's like, what are you telling me? But it's also like, I mean, maybe 11-year-old wouldn't have understood it then, but it's just more like that's just what their best looks like. And it's not about you. You're enough. You're enough.
That's healing to hear, I think, for anyone.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Susan, for being on our show. Where should people find you most easily?
Yeah, on Instagram at Susan Lieu, Lieu. You can go to my website, susanlieu.me, and watch 140 pounds and stream it if you want.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
We will link that.
Yeah, and if you sign up for my newsletter, I write about all crazy
Ooh.
things, including this. Well, oh wait, I was like, oh wait, we're supposed to keep it PJ. Yeah, you'll find out fun other stories on my newsletter.
Thank you, Susan. We will link all the stuff you want people to find on the show notes, so they can go click there. But yes, go read The Manicurist's Daughter if you haven't already. If this sparks your interest, it's so deep and rich and layered, and we are so honored to have you on as our guest. So thank you for being here.
Oh my God, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much. And I do the audiobook, so
Yeah,
you
that's
can hear me
nice.
perform it. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh my
that's
gosh,
so
I
nice.
would
Yeah,
love
she is a
that.
performer. It's like the best. You
Yeah.
have a book in your ears. I love that. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Healing the Tigress. The more we share these stories, the more we can help other AAPI mothers and partners. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to keep supporting this mission, please hit the subscribe button to the show and take a few seconds to leave a rating. An extra big thanks if you would also leave a review to boost our show visibility and help other AAPI folks find us.
You can also follow us on Instagram at Healing the Tigress, or even better, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/Healing the Tigress podcast to support us more. Inside the Patreon, we will be offering more bonus episodes, sneak peeks, and a community for you to help shape our podcast too. Thanks for being here.
Healing the Tigress is produced and edited by Peggy and Jasmine.
Music for this show is remixed by Dr. Tony Huynh of Tony Mixes.
Our intro music is a cover of You and Me by Z Avi, played by our co-host Peggy.
Our outro music is a cover of Green Island Serenade, played by Jasmine's sister.
Cover art design is by Dr. Angela Chung.